Hello, everybody. Greetings and blessings. My name is Fitz, and I am a soul scribe and a stom scribe. And what do I mean by that? It sounds a little funny, but when I say a soul scribe, what that means is I'm a champion for people authoring the story of their life. I support people to create what they'd love in their life and live as the expression of who they'd love to be, which is who they in fact are. And in my work with people, one theme that has come up quite a bit is how do you reconcile creation, being cause in the matter, proactivity, with faith and trust in God? How do those two things go together? Because the work that I do, both in myself and together with people that I journey with, is to continuously look, discover, and access how we and the way we see things and the way we contextualize things and the way we speak of things and the perceptions and ideas that we become attached to then end up forming our worldview and the parameters of what becomes possible and not possible. And the more we gain access to our creative nature and to the force of creation that we in fact are, the locus of creativity that we in fact are, the more we are then able to go ahead and bring about desired outcomes in the world, desired states of being, internal experiences, identity, etc. So how does that fit with faith? Because so many times people say to me, Fitz, I don't know about this whole creation thing. I don't know about this, causing stuff. It's just like, I just trust in Hashem and just trust in God, that he'll take care of it. I mean, it hasn't worked out yet, but, I'm just sitting, I'm just hanging there, I'm hanging in there tight, And it really struck me as I listened to this and as I received this, that it seems for a lot of people that this idea, this religious idea, this spiritual idea of trusting in God is almost like not an actual leveraging of one's own power, but like a deferral of one's own power. And it's almost as if, I don't have a say in this game. I don't have a responsibility. I don't have a mission. I don't have an aspect to contribute. I'm not meant to be a co-creator. It's like, let God do the work, And there's a kind of absolving of responsibility and a deferral of one's own power that seems to be hidden behind this pretense of trust in God. So I would love to look together at a little excerpt from a teaching of the Lubavitcher Rebbe that to me is striking and really, really has us look at this whole idea and this approach of trust in God, trust in the divine unfolding and in the perfection of everything in a different way. Where here the Rebbe says, Ein ha-pirush b'betochen shemaymin shekivan shechaz de Hashem him b'li medida v'hagbola bein l'roi bein l'misha ein l'roi l'chein hu yikabel es chaz de Hashem b'li shom aved mitziloi. To trust in God does not mean to believe that since God's kindness is endless and limitless and unconditional, whether one is worthy, whether one is unworthy, therefore, because I believe that God's kindness is unconditional and limitless, therefore, I believe that I will receive all the goodness in the world, even without any commitment, even without any work on my own part. Says the Rebbe, this cannot be the distinction of trust in God and in the divine. Because in that case, there is no reward and punishment, right? In that case, there's no relationship anymore between what I'm putting in, what I'm investing, what I'm creating, and what I'm then receiving in return. Reward and punishment is predicated on the idea that there is a relationship between my experience and what I receive and my commitment and my work. So therefore, the Rebbe continues, to trust in God must in fact be work. It must in fact be a commitment. And it is that very work and that very commitment that elicits and that calls forth a response from the divine, from God, which manifests itself as the goodness. So it is in fact the work that I put in that then elicits the result and the outcome of goodness. Bitochen, to live in trust, is in fact work and an intense commitment spiritually. And this is what in fact calls forth and brings forth divine goodness. And they come forth as the response and as the result of the work that the person does on himself to put his trust in God. Through this that a person truly relies on, in the depth of his being, only on God, to the point that he is completely worry-free. It is this radical commitment to being at peace, this radical commitment to being calm, to being still, to being worry-free. It is that radical commitment. It is the work that takes within a person that actually releases this unbelievable goodness that the person then gets to experience and benefit from. So it's not a belief in the limitlessness of God's goodness such that whether I deserve it, whether I don't deserve it, whether I put in the work or I don't put in the work, I'm going to get good, because that would dissolve and do away with all function of responsibility. Reward and punishment is essentially the construct of responsibility. Rather, it is through cultivating oneself to transcend scarcity, to transcend neediness, to transcend fear, to transcend worry, and to create a context in which a person is completely at peace, with a complete trust and inner knowing that God provides. It is that work that one puts in to actually embody that actually calls forth a response of goodness. So here we see something very interesting. True trust in God is not actually a deferral of responsibility or a deferral of agency or a deferral of one's power. To the contrary, it is the leveraging of one's power. It is the consummate work on the self to expand oneself out of the survival context, out of the desperation, neediness, scarcity, fear, and worry. It is the ultimate work to create oneself as free, to create oneself as an embodied expression of the knowing that everything is provided for and that all the goodness in the world is coming his way. It is that work itself that creates that opening and elicits that response from the universe, that elicits that response from God, that elicits that response within the self that elicits that outcome and that result. So this is really, really interesting, because here we see how even the idea and the state of being in complete trust is in itself a creation of man. It's in itself a created state of being. It's something that is cultivated. It's something that is chosen. It's something that is worked on. It is the ultimate opposite of the absolving oneself of responsibility, the ultimate opposite of deferring one's power and one's agency, the ultimate opposite of saying, God will take care of my issues, while I just, kind of sulk, wallow, worry, and fear. And instead, it is a radical rising up to take ownership of one's own state of being, to take ownership of one's viewpoint of the world, of the self, to take ownership of one's perspective and the context that one is living inside of. And it's that work itself that produces the ultimate goodness as a response to that work, which is how the Rebbe explains in Tzemach Tzedek's teaching of Trach gut vet sein gut, think good and it will be good. It is the work that goes in to transcending the scarcity, the neediness, the fear, the desperation, the urgency, and the survival context, and to arrive at and arise into a more limitless experience of the self and a more limitless knowing of the self that actually elicits those results in the world. So the way I see this idea of trusting in God, that too is my creation. That too is my work to be done, to put in. That too is my commitment to cultivating my state of being, my perspective, my point of view, my internal experience. And that's really a high work. Just to conclude, it's very interesting here. One additional piece that the Rebbe adds is that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he learned that he had been discovered after causing the Mitzri, the Egyptian, to die, he learned that he had been discovered, and he became fearful. And the Rebbe explains that it is this very having become fearful that brought about the actual threat of the paroi, of the Pharaoh, seeking to have Moshe executed. It was Moshe's own fearfulness that lived in his state of being that actually was the opening that allowed for the actual real threat of Paroi wanting to catch Moshe and kill him. So it's interesting that the Rebbe points out that the verse says, "Vayomer ochin noida hadover," that Moses said, "Oof, I've been exposed. I've been discovered. Someone found out about what I did." He spoke it. He didn't only think it, but he actually spoke it. And in his speaking it, he concretized even further the state of being not in trust, the state of being in fear. And this worsened it even more. So we see over here, not only do we see, and I'd like to point out that I think the opposite the reverse is true as well. When we are working and practicing on cultivating our state of being to transcend the survival context, a fearful, worrisome context, to be truly at peace, to live from a place of expansiveness and abundance and freedom and complete trust in God's goodness and in the goodness and in the perfection of the universe, of existence, of it all. Speaking that actually is one way to call it into being and call it into existence and concretize it and make it, add mass to it and embody it. Yes, so speaking, what we speak, how we speak, that we speak is an actual tool that we can use in the process of cultivating our state of being. If you would love to go deeper with any of this, if you would love to cultivate your state of being, to create results in the world, if you would love to leverage your power of speech in a way that actually serves you and your mission and your purpose, if you would love to create who you are and new results in the world that express that and fulfill on who you are, feel free to reach out. I would love to be in conversation with you. Thank you. I love you all. Thank you for receiving me and for receiving this.